Welcome to another episode of Viewer Beware. I'm Alex.
I'm Fitz.
And today we're on the wrong show.
Exactly.
As a special April Fool's treat, we're here on Viewer Beware this week. Jarrod and Hadley are over on Two Who's Review. And we gave them about an hour 15 of content to sit through for this. They gave us 2 books and an hour and a half.
And it was... yeah.
Yeah, so we're here talking about... We haven't talked about books before.
No.
This is our first time doing a book report. And I dare say, out of everything that we've discussed over the last couple of years, we may have the most arguments today.
Oh, maybe.
Neither of us have... I can't speak for you. I was never a big Goosebumps person as a kid. I had 1 or 2 of the Choose Your Own Scare books. But that's about it. I was the kind of wimp who never liked anything mildly scary.
I was never a big Goosebumps fan myself. I think I read part of some of the books in primary school, but I don't think I ever really finished any of them. The book covers look really cool, which is, the main, attractive element for me. But beyond that, never really read them that much. Unlike you, Cuff, I grew up after a certain point loving, horror and horror movies, but when I was, really little, Goosebumps used to scare the shit out of me, so I avoided it for ages, which is funny for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, my exposure to the the TV show and the books was never particularly massive. And, I mean, I can critique books, I have a... got a creative writing degree, but books aren't my main area of expertise.
So the books we were given to discuss, they're not part of the original series, so what we say today will not be canon to the whiteboard and the bucket of death. We were given Scariest Book Ever and The Haunted Car.
Mm-hmm.
Reading these books, what's your general impression? Just of the general Goosebumps experience.
Very, very varied in quality. I'm going to... I'll obviously elaborate on this to a considerable degree, but I'll just put this very simply. One of these books is a book. It has a story, it has characters, and it has a narrative that I can understand and enjoy. One of these books...
is the one that I would say all that stuff about.
Is absolute garbage. Is complete...
See, here's the thing. I know that you're talking about this book when you say garbage, right? I think this one is garbage.
Jesus Christ.
I think we should just get into it. So we're going to start with Scariest Book Ever, which is part of the House of Shivers series. And it has a slightly different formula than I think most of the other Goosebumps books have.
Formula.
Well, it has its own formula, but essentially this is about a scary book. Wait, sorry, no it isn't. That's the MacGuffin that drives the plot, because it's actually about a haunted forest that time forgot. And doppelgangers and the like. It's bizarre. I think this
That's a word.
Yeah, I think they sometimes talk about the covers, don't they? I don't think this cover is the most accurate way of depicting what goes on in this.
I mean...
Because when you get a title Scariest Book Ever and you see a man bat...
I mean, it does, obviously that ties into the plot, we'll get into it, but, I mean, it could have been a better cover, I guess. It looks kind of goofy as shit, but that's...
I'm surprised that you don't like this book, because to me, this could easily be, and you're going to hate me for saying this could easily be an episode of Classic Who.
No, here's the thing. I'll say this. I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
And I'll be getting into why that is. But this is... some of the cliffhangers I can kind of understand, especially given that cliffhangers in Classic Who can sometimes be pretty fucking bad.
Yeah.
This is much worse than I think almost anything we've covered on the podcast for me. It's
Let's get into it. So,
Yeah.
the protagonists of this book are Betty and Billy, and they are twins. Betty is the adventurous one. Billy is the kind of nervous one, which is kind of a thing with the Goosebumps series. That's a dynamic that happens in everything that we're going to discuss today. And the style of the book is that they are being taken by their parents to their Uncle Wendell's house because the parents are going on a work trip. What are you two discussing?
There's always an uncle, and he's always a scientist.
Oh,
And the parents are always going on a work trip.
this uncle isn't a scientist.
We're changing the formula.
We'll get to the uncle. One thing I'll say at the top, and one of my notes as well, is that these parents are the worst parents I've
Classic
ever read.
Goosebumps.
Well, here's the thing. They're going to London for a work trip, right? But it's only ever the dad. They only describe it the dad job. He's in real estate. I don't know why he's going to London for a real estate job, but whatever. And Betty and Billy are like, we want to go to London with you. That sounds fun. Why are we going to stay with this uncle who we don't know and who only met us when we were too young to remember him? And the parents say, well, it's a work trip.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
So
but we don't know what the mum does.
It's How to Kill a Monster.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
one of the books we read this month.
Well,
Well, look at that, but I just want to
It's
finish.
also like half of them.
Well, I just want to finish this point because we don't know what the mum does. So this could be just a work trip that the dad is taking, but the wife is going because they're making it a family thing. It just happens to be a family trip where
without the kids.
where they can regularly fuck as well. That's just what it is. But anyway, the Uncle Wendell lives in the Wayward Forest, which is this really spooky forest, and they eventually find the house. Oh, by the way, the twins have a dog as well. It's barely in the book, but there is a dog.
These books haven't changed over 30 years.
So anyway,
He's writing the same shit.
well, they get to the house, they ring the doorbell a couple of times, no response, and the parents go, oh, we gotta go. Hopefully he shows up, and the parents fucking leave. Again, no sign of Uncle Wendell, worst parents ever. So they eventually find their Uncle Wendell, and he's got a daughter, I think, whose name is Jessie.
Yeah.
And Betty be like, huh, Mum and Dad never mentioned that we have a cousin here.
Yeah.
But whatever, it has been a while. And Uncle Wendell is like, this is a really bad time because, we've just had someone break into the house and steal the scariest book ever. Mm-hmm. And Betty and Billy are like, well, why is this book so scary? And he's like, I cannot talk about it. It's too scary. And that's the extent of the extent of what we learn about it. We don't learn why it's scary. We don't learn what it does. We know that you can't set fire to it or destroy it because doing so would unleash the evil.
Yeah.
He's the keeper of the book, and it's determined that the thief escaped into the Wayward Forest. It's described as this, it's a forest that time forgot, right?
Yeah.
The way it's described is it's been untouched by human civilization, and as a result, evolution has run rampant.
Yeah, so those
because that's how evolution works.
Yeah.
It's not.
Would you believe that that's one of the less frustrating parts I found about this story?
No, I agree, because that leads to one of my favorite things about it. It's that Stine takes the first third of the book, and it's just their adventure in the forest, and he gets to be as creative as he wants, and he gets to describe these bats with human faces and flying bears as described, that swing through the trees and ambush you when you make a noise. But okay, so they headed into the forest to look for the book. They have this fucking search. I think Billy gets stuck in a bog at some point and has to be freed.
Yeah. No, it's quicksand. Yeah.
Quicksand. Yeah, there are vines that are snakes. There's a whole bunch of shit like that, and in the process they lose Wendell, and they lose him. He's gone. He's gone. Eventually, because they're being chased by the bears, I think they decide, well, the safest thing for us to do is just to get back to the house. We gotta get out of the forest. Let's just get back to the house. So now we're at approximately the halfway mark of the book, and when they get back into the house, earlier on, there's a shed, and it's rattling and it's shaking, and Uncle Wendell is like, I trapped something from the forest in that thing.
It's called a blood skeet.
It's called a blood skeet, yeah. Don't open it, the blood skeet is
dangerous,
So when they get back to the house, they hear someone yelling out for help inside the shed.
Yeah. So they're like, someone's in there.
Someone's in there, that's a bit weird. Yeah. Maybe they're trapped in with the blood skeet or whatever. They open up the shed, and a man falls out, and he's like, Betty, Billy.
I'm your Uncle Wendell.
I'm your Uncle Wendell.
And they're like, what?
So this other person is not Wendell, and they don't have a cousin named Jessie.
Yeah. So
these two people are. I forget how it's like the book.
first,
worm or
okay,
something?
first Uncle Wendell is the bookworm.
The bookworm, yes. So
second Uncle Wendell.
well, hang
is,
on, we'll get there. So the
This is so classic.
So it's the bookworm, and Uncle Wendell's like, the bookworm, he's trying to steal the book because he's just a fucking big fan of books, but he doesn't realize how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
And then the kid's like, okay, so what is it? No, I can't talk about the book. It's too scary.
It's forbidden.
So he's eventually like, I'm going to show you guys where I've hidden the book. And he goes into the kitchen, and they're like, what the fuck, is this with the cookbooks? And he's like, exactly. It's such an obvious place to put the book, no one's going to think to look there. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty clever, I guess. And then... boom, Wendell and Jesse appear. Oh, no, the bookworm and Jesse appear. And it's like, you've led me right to the book, Wendell. I knew you would. Now, give me the book or I'm gonna... And Jesse's holding a flamethrower at this point. Just a whole-ass flamethrower.
Yeah.
And he's like... Initially, the bookworm is like, tell me where the book is or I'm gonna set fire to the rest of your book collection. And he's like, well, no. And then he's like, okay, instead I'm gonna burn the kids. And it's like, okay, fine, here's the book, take it. And then they set fire to the kitchen anyway. So they run away, they put the fire out, and then Betty and Billy are like, why would you do that? And then Wendell says, that wasn't the real book. I knew that they were going to come back and try and get the book from me, so I gave them a fake book. Here's where the real book is. So they go down into the basement now, and there was a little safe there. Opens up the safe, and it's a cavern inside. And it's presumably going to lead to the book. And then... Bookworm and Jesse appear again, and they say, well, I knew that was a fake. They literally Sherlock and Moriarty each other for like 10 chapters in this section of the book.
I think that's being a bit too flattering there. But in any
So
case.
Wendell reveals the actual location of the book, and then they get locked in the safe.
Yeah.
And then Wendell's like, well, that wasn't the real location of the book, and in fact, I came down here on purpose. We're going to escape into the forest.
Yeah.
Because the real book is in a cave in the forest. So we're going back into the forest now. As they're trying to escape, they're trying to do it quietly so that the bookworm and Jesse don't hear. And then Billy, who throughout the entire book has been described as someone who will occasionally sneeze.
When he's nervous.
Lots of a massive sneeze alerts them to their presence.
And then the chase begins.
The chase begins. At this point, their dog sicks itself on the bookworm, and he's kind of done for the rest of the book. He's not around. So they're heading to this cave where the real book is. And it's guarded by a cave locust.
Yeah, a cave with giant... there are, I think, 2 giant locusts.
2 giant locusts, and it's this standoff between them. I will say, like, the descriptions of the monsters are actually, like, pretty in-depth and detailed. And it's like, if I was a kid, but it's really evocative stuff. So the descriptions are pretty decent. So Wendell runs off into the cave to get the book. And as they're facing off against the locusts, we see... someone appear at the mouth of the cave, and it's a man that no one has seen before. And he runs in and he goes, Betty, Billy, thank goodness I found you guys. It's me, your Uncle Wendell. With 3 chapters left, he pulls the same trick again, and I honestly didn't see it coming. So now there's a third one in the mix. And he says this other person is someone called the Collector, and he needs this book to complete his collection, but he doesn't know how... And then it gets to this point where he's got the second Uncle Wendell has the book, and third Uncle Wendell runs in and is like, give me the book, you don't have no idea how dangerous it is. And the second Uncle Wendell's like, no, you're all the Collector, you're bad. So it's that whole thing of like, I don't know which one to shoot, but with the twist of they're not identical, they're just 2 people that they've never met before.
Yeah.
They managed to figure out who's real by doing what's Betty's full name? I think one of them says Elizabeth, one of them says Bethany.
Yeah.
And Bethany is the real name.
One. So they
figure it out. I think I can't remember the Collector's fate. I don't think he's left to be eaten by locusts. Oh no, Billy sneezes again and alerts a flying bear.
Yeah,
the bear comes down and devours the Collector, and then they manage to escape. All the good guys get away.
Yeah.
2 weeks pass, the parents arrive to pick them up, and it's like, well, see, I told you your time with Uncle Wendell was going to be fun, you guys. And then they go back home, and the final chapter is that Uncle Wendell has decided this fucking hiding place isn't working, there's too many evil people coming to steal the book. The safest place is with you guys, so I've mailed you the book. And the final cliffhanger is Billy going, hey, do you want to open the book? Like a fucking moron. And that is insane and wild ride that I really couldn't predict, and that's why I like it. It feels like Stine was just giving himself license to do whatever the fuck he wanted. He didn't feel constrained by the original Goosebumps formula. A problem I have with this is that like 90% of the chapters end with cliffhangers that are resolved in 2 sentences. This one isn't like that. This one, whenever there's a cliffhanger, it actually persists into the next chapter somewhat, and it's not important for the entire book. But you're looking at me like I'm an idiot, and I have a feeling there's stuff I'm missing. But like, I read this one first and it bored me. I read this one and I went, Stine is having fun, and that's why I like it.
I'm the opposite. I think, man, we're gonna have some time today.
Yeah.
I hated this book. I hated this book. I read it twice, and that was a mistake. And in fact, no. You know what? Let's just sort of let's just sort of take it to another moment that you and I shared with this book. Can you remember the first thing I said to you when I gave you this book?
I believe it was something like, you're in for a ride.
No. Do you know what I said? Here's the book. It's really... And then I just walked away.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, that's what you did.
And the reason I did that was because this book was fucking awful. It was stupid. It was pointless. The plot points barely made sense. The narrative was terribly strung together. The cliffhangers were fucking awful. There's one in particular which we're going to get to. One in particular which I think you'll know what I'm talking about.
Maybe. But...
the characterizations were incredibly thin. The descriptions weren't particularly good either.
That is an incredible summary of The Haunted Car, but we're talking about Scariest book ever right now.
Awful.
So...
It's awful. It's awful. The plot twists are so pointless. They're so needlessly convoluted. This book is like if someone who didn't like Goosebumps wrote a Goosebumps book. Okay?
Yeah, that's what I said. Stine was writing a Goosebumps book.
This is another small thing. This may be a bit of a nitpick. The sentences are so short. They're so fucking short. It's like, no. Okay? The sentences in that book are not as short as the ones in here. Okay? The sentences in this are often almost half the length of what they are in there. It's like he's trying to end each page on a full stop. It's like... there was a point where I think I wrote down that I assume that the reason why he's got these short sentences is to cater to the age range. And I'm like, oh, alright, okay, I can understand that. The problem is, apart from the fact it's not backed up with any good, strong narrative elements, it's so repetitive and so stupid, it is like I'm repetitively getting punched in the face. And not to mention that, again, the sentences in the other book aren't that short, and it's like it's dumbing it down even for like a kid's book. It's so...
Let me quickly back up that spice with some sugar.
Yeah, sure.
I want to talk about the stuff in this that I think works,
sure,
that you're not quite...
Yeah, sure. That's...
I mentioned that they repeat the I'm a real Uncle Wendell.
Yeah.
I actually like that they do that, because I think one of the things that this book does well is there is a little bit of fear in this that works, and that's the fear of the unknown. But also there's the fear of, like, the person that you've been trusting this entire time was not to be trusted. And I think that works on some level. Like, the whole... When it gets to the final thing and it's like... I think that's why the twist works the second time, because the first Uncle Wendell is a creep from the start. The first Uncle Wendell I'm imagining is Nosferatu the entire time. The second Uncle Wendell felt like an actual person who cared about the kids. So when you find out that he was also evil, that kind of sends a chill down your spine.
I'm sorry, I can't agree with you. It's the characterization.
Yeah, but you like Haunted Car, so your opinion is invalid.
Fuck off. The problem is, the characterizations for me are so thin that I don't give a shit about any of them.
No, that's fair.
There's barely any kind of irony or humor, and...
I'm not saying this is going to win a Pulitzer. I'm just saying that for the age range, I think this is the better Goosebumps book.
It isn't. It so isn't. The Haunted Car has absolutely better characterization. I'm not going to get into it that much,
well,
because
also,
we're not doing the Haunted Car quite yet. But
yeah.
Still, the characterizations in Scariest book ever are so fucking terrible. I don't give a shit about these characters.
I don't
care if the uncle cares. I don't care if the uncle cares about the kids. I don't care if the second uncle seems to care about the kids. The sense of horror is barely tangible. It's shit. I'm not being as eloquent as I normally am because I'm running on fumes at this point, but it's just... It's so bad.
Let's get to our notes.
Fuck. It's time for the receipts. Jesus Christ, what have we got? Page 1. Page 1. I have this line here.
Right,
when Billy's describing, we only pretended to shiver and shudder. I'm sorry. I wrote here, Jesus Christ. Was there no other more visual way to put that? That seems like such a bland description of it.
Well, he's done that because we don't learn anything about the book. That's my main problem with it. It's like the entire book is like set up to be like, oh, we have to protect the book, but we never learn anything about it.
Can I read that for a second?
Yeah.
Just to see
No, you had it word for word.
to...
I believe that it left this much of an impression on you. I believe that you have Vietnam flashbacks about this book. I just don't understand why.
I read it twice. I can't believe I read the fucking thing twice.
Honestly, I think you're going to stare daggers at me for this as well. But I think the book ended on the wrong cliffhanger. It ended on the wrong scary note. It shouldn't have ended with Uncle Wendell mailing the book to Billy and Betty for safekeeping, and Billy just acting so out of character and suggesting they open it. What it should have ended with is the kids describing their time with Uncle Wendell, and then the parents going, Uncle Wendell never had red hair.
No, that would have made it so much fucking worse.
I disagree. I think it should have ended on a third. That wasn't Uncle Wendell.
No,
that's absolutely what they should have done.
That's so fucking painfully stupid. It was bad enough that we had 2 extra Uncle Wendells. It would have been so much worse if we had like a fourth one. I cannot... There was one line about the dad. It's like, oh, Dad was a stand-up comic before he went into real estate and he still thinks he's funny. I'll give you credit. That is actually kind of a funny line. Kudos to R.L. Stine. That's all right.
Yeah, but the joke he tells is shit. And it's...
Yeah, but like there's a level of irony there that works. It's funny because it's so fucking bad.
I do find it like kind of like charming to some degree what Stine thinks evolution is.
There's
a point, he makes a point of being like, oh, the animals in the Wayward Forest they've been untouched by human hands, and that's why they've been able to evolve to the point where they have. But it's like, humans have only existed for like 10,000 years, and he's talking about things that would take millions, if not billions of years of evolution to happen. Including a species of cannibal crows who attack and eat each other the moment they come out of the egg. It's like, how the fuck could a species like that ever evolve?
I haven't found it here, but I just remembered it. One of the big issues that I have with this story is the amount of set-offs that are never paid off.
True.
Great example. The fucking bear. Jesus Christ. There's so much attention devoted to that.
Well, the bear is one of the few things that does pay off, because it attacks the final Uncle Wendell at the end.
No. The stuffed bear. The dancing bear in that they call... There's a chapter called The Dancing Bear, right?
Oh, yes.
And there's a stuffed bear in the hallway. They devote a whole thing to it saying, oh, how scary it is. It's like, no, there's literally a bit where the uncle says, oh, and like once a month in the full moon, it comes to life and attacks people. Never gets brought up again. That never gets brought up again. The traps don't really get brought up again, despite the fact that apparently the house is full with traps.
Yeah.
There are so many things that just don't get brought up again. There's, Jesus Christ, what the fuck else have I got on this piece of shit?
It's almost like this was written by Stephen Moffat, you hate it so much.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
It's a little bit of cross show comedy, right?
Only true viewers of both shows will get that one.
You're looking at the only one. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going through this catalogue of literative nausea.
Can we get you to review the Bible next?
It's a little bloated.
Yeah.
There's stuff that gets paid off set up in the Book of Job that never resolves itself.
I hid the book in the cooking section. He reaches his hand up. The book has vanished, and it literally gets resolved on the next page. It's like, oh wait, I put it in the appetizer section.
I cannot wait to talk about the cliffhangers in that.
Jesus.
No.
No.
Yes.
The concept, they are pretty wild. I'll give him credit. but they're nowhere near enough to justify this story. It's just a random set of things that kind of happen, and nothing to back it up. I think I even wrote down here that, like, I would prefer it if it was like just really light on story, if it focused more on characterization, and maybe just had some of the wacky concepts come in.
So it's the Avatar thing, where it's like the film Avatar, the weakest part of it is the story. If it was just like if Pandora was a nature documentary and they could just focus on the visuals and the world and the creatures, it would be more interesting than the military coming in and doing military stuff.
No, you know what? No, I've got one last thing to say. There was a part of me that didn't want to do this, but I feel compelled to poorly paraphrase that eternally idiotic fool Dave Rubin by saying, I have to say, my brain is still in recovery mode from taking in so many low-level, stupid ideas.
So let's talk the haunted car. So now that we've talked about the good book, let's talk about the bad book.
Fuck off.
We have Haunted Car. I think this isn't the original Goosebumps series, but it's like one of the follow-up second series. I'm being motioned to off camera. Why don't you go ahead and justify this?
Okay, I'm gonna try my best to describe all the plot here.
Talk about your favorite book ever.
It is not my favorite book ever. It's just my favorite Goosebumps book I've ever read completely. So it's a story about Mitchell and Todd. They're two brothers, and they're, new neighbors who moved into a creepy old house.
New neighborhood stuff.
Yep, new neighborhood stuff. Classic R.L. Stine fare. Todd is, he believes in supernatural, and he's easily scared, and, he keeps going to his brother. He keeps saying to his brother, the house is haunted, help, And his brother keeps, mocking him, saying, no, there's no ghost. What are you talking about, you moron? This older brother, Mitchell, he's obsessed with cars, by the way. Paints model cars, really fascinated with cars.
As soon as I read, and I think it's my first note actually on the haunted car, I just wrote Mitchell is the worst, and I justify that, because Mitchell is he's the kind of person who has car as his entire personality, and that is the kind of person that I physically cannot vibe with on any level. I grant it's a personal thing.
See,
but
man,
and I know what you're gonna say. I know you're gonna say, well, at least he's not Betty and Billy. But Betty and Billy for me just skated through that story without really interacting with it much. Mitchell actively upset me because
I found him way more engaging than Billy and Betty ever were. And what's more, you say you have a personal thing about not liking cars. Fine, all right, that's all right. Here's the thing. I don't know jack shit about cars. I don't care about cars. But even from the beginning, on the first page, it was better than a Scariest book ever, because the descriptions that Billy was giving of all the cars that he loved was so, interesting and, so descriptive. I actually felt that passion. I'm like, I get it. This is
sure.
This is what I'm like when I'm being a fucking weirdo, when I'm talking about my vinyl records or my fucking Legos or Transformers that I have in a glass cabinet in my room.
My response is, you're this passionate about cars and you're 12. Jesus Christ, get a personality. Know what I dream about at night? That's right. I dream that I'm driving cars.
Can I interject?
Off. Yeah.
That's autism.
When I think about people whose entire personalities are cars, I think about people who will grow up to be serial killers. And that's just...
Mitchell and Todd, new house. Todd thinks it's spooky. Mitch doesn't.
Yeah.
Their dad, he's a little bit of a moron. Both of their parents are kind of dumb. That's kind of a common thing in Goosebumps books.
Well, his dad is I don't need to call a handyman. I can
I can fix everything myself.
And he gets electrocuted no less than 5 times.
Even though he's a fucking moron, and as his wife even says, he said, when it comes to being handy, he's all thumbs, which...
Well, that's something else I noticed, in both
He's
books...
fucking used that before.
Really?
He's definitely used that before.
I don't remember which one.
Oh, but he's you agree, he's used it.
Yeah.
Fucking A.
Well, that's a weird thing. In both books, the dad had a descriptor, right? Used to be a stand-up comedian, still thinks he's funny. All thumbs doesn't... And then the mother characters are just wife.
Yeah. Which actually kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Mitchell finds an advertisement in the fucking newspaper, and it says, new car for sale,
You can
and
name your price.
yeah, name your price. And Mitchell says to his dad, "Dad, we've got to go fucking check it out. What are you talking about?"
Mitchell hates the family car.
Yeah, because
his
it's
problem.
old and shitty, and again, he's obsessed with cars.
Sensible, yeah.
Yeah. So after a lot of nagging, Mitchell's dad said, "All right, fine, we'll go check out this car." So they go down there.
Well, I think it's because their car breaks down.
Yes.
It?
Oh, yeah. No, and that's the other thing. So yes, their car breaks down, and that's one of the signs that this book for me is a lot better than the other one. I love that scene. The pacing was good. The descriptions were great. I was genuinely anxious, nervous, and frankly kind of scared. I honestly wasn't sure where it was going. Like, I knew that they weren't going to die, because that's just the thing that wasn't going to happen in the R.L. Stine book. But the descriptions were so good and so interesting that it genuinely kind of freaked me out. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, are they really actually going to do a thing where they have a massive fucking car crash?
Well, yeah,
That's what they did.
They spend about, 4 pages where the brakes aren't working, and they hit a tree, and then the first thing out of Mitchell's mouth is, does this mean we're getting a new car? And I'm like, you almost died, grow the fuck up.
I love that, though, because he's just a dumb little shit.
That's why I hate him.
Well, no, and then that's the thing. He's a dumb little shit that's annoying, and I can't understand that, but at least that's some character.
Well, no, I know where you're coming from. It's the kind of thing where it's like, the Mitchell had, aspects of his personality you could identify with and, understand at a personal level. And those aspects I hated.
Yeah.
But your argument is, well, at least they are.
Yeah, at least they're there. Like, the core writing qualities of good characterization are present. Whereas with Billy and Betty, it's slightly brave girl who's annoying and kid who sneezes too much. So for me, anyway. So they go down to check out this car, and it's in a garage run by this old, weird dude who, keeps, staring off into the distance and being really evasive, and he's like, just take the car,
Yeah, well, it's not just that, though. It's just take the car to save the car, but he sees there's a kid there, and he's like, he occasionally has moments of oh man, they're going to take the car.
Yeah. Mitchell's like, yeah, we got to get it, Dad. So, eventually, after a little bit of to and froing, they finally take the car and they drive off with it.
They have their family dinner, and Mitchell's pestering the dad. Can we take it for a drive?
He's really keen to go take it for a spin.
They're talking at dinner, and he's like, we just took it for a massive drive before dinner.
Yeah.
We can wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, he's in bed at night, and he's like, oh, gotta get back in that car.
Yeah.
He literally gets, it's like heroin to the kid.
Yeah, yeah.
That's when he goes out on his own.
Yeah. And then
that's when all the new spooky shit happens.
Yeah, because he gets locked in there, doesn't he? He tries to...
He gets inside the car and then he can't get out.
Yeah.
That's when Marissa shows up for the first time.
So she helps him out of the car. Then they have a kind of a bit of a back and forth, and she gives tiny little hints of maybe there's something up about the car, but nothing substantial.
Yeah.
And then he just goes back to bed. Next day, 2 of his car-loving friends come over, and they're like, oh, can we please take a look at the car? And so he finally takes them down to see it. They get in the car, but then more fucky things happen where the car locks, but then it also gets really, really cold, and they basically almost freeze to death. Mm-hmm. Marissa shows up again and saves them, but his 2 friends flee before they could see Marissa, so they still don't really know that she's real. Mm-hmm. Now, I think Mitchell and Marissa have another little back and forth.
They have another small back and forth, and then that night, Mitchell has a joyride.
Yeah. Yes, is that the first? Yeah.
Yeah, he once again is tempted by the car to go.
And so he goes down
and he gets locked in again, but this time the car speeds away with him inside, and he can hear a voice saying, "I'm evil. I'm so evil." And having laughter and things like that. It speeds him towards towards traffic, towards a tree.
And I think wasn't it eventually towards a train track?
I think it might have been. Yeah.
Because that's the first car trip.
It's I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah,
and it's swerves out of the way at the last second.
Yeah. It does that. His parents come to find him, don't they? Because
they heard the car leaving.
Yeah.
And saw him out of bed, and they were like, "He's taken the car for a spin. He shouldn't have done that."
And then they go after him. They find him, get really pissed off at him, take the car back home, and basically ground him for life.
Yeah, and they obviously don't believe him that the car is haunted.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, because they're shitty parents.
It's at this point because I think his brother Todd has been there for at least one of the Marissa encounters, and is like, "It's Marissa. That's the ghost haunting the car."
Yeah. And he starts to sort of put it together.
Yeah.
He's
And at that point, Mitchell gets a call from Marissa.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what happened? And then Mitchell's like, I know. And Marissa says, so what are we going to do about this then? And Mitchell just hangs up.
Yeah, because I think he literally says, like, that's like a threat. So,
yes.
He's spooked. He, ends a phone call. And then we just go, I'm pretty sure it's just to the next day.
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to remember why the parents leave the house, because they do this weird thing here where
they go off to... It's like I'm pretty sure it's a work thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a... Hang on, they're going to a...
No, or are they visiting, like, the cousins?
They go to visit some of their cousins.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they leave Mitchell alone in the house.
Yeah.
It's like... That was weird to me, because it's like, when you're grounded, you don't get out of family functions. And if they don't trust Mitchell around the car, the best thing to do is to take him with you to the family function, not leave him alone
They
again
say,
with the
they say
fucking
to him,
car.
you're freaking out a lot, you need a cool down period, I think as his mum says.
Sure.
So they leave him alone in the house.
He once
Then,
again is
yeah,
drawn
he
to
then
the car.
and this really weird thing happens where he's almost like psychically drawn to it. Like he goes down and it's like, oh no, like
Before this is what clues him into Marissa potentially being the ghost of the car. He goes back to the home.
to the home of the car dealer, and
he sees him through the window,
and he's crying in front of like a memorial of someone, and it's the picture of Marissa with the words "in loving memory" on it. So he figures, oh, she's dead, so she must be the ghost.
Yes.
So then he goes into the car, and he gets weirdly psychically drawn to it. He's like, oh no, I don't want to open the door, but I'm opening the door. Gets into the car, and then the car just takes off. And this is the really big, scary, climactic thing. The car tells him,
the ghost also like materializes in the form of this weird goo thing.
Yeah, the ghost tells him, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And then the ghost of Marissa manifests in the car as this horrible, rotting zombie looking thing. And there's a wild sort of, it's not a chase, but like a...
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We learned that the ghost, because the ghost died too early, the ghost wants some company, essentially. Yeah. So it's like, I'm going to kill you, and then you'll be a ghost with me.
Yeah. So they're driving. He hears a police siren behind him and think, oh, they'll save me. But then it turns out not to be a police siren. It's a fire truck. Drives past him and think, oh, fuck, I'm not going to be saved. And then he's like, oh, just please, just take me home. And she's like, oh, okay, if that's where you want to die. So she drives him back home. Turns out the fire truck was going to his home because his moron father left like this electrical thing not fixed up properly, and it was sort of sparking before Mitchell left. So the house was on fire. So the fire truck shows up there. Mitch's family is all outside the house, and they're sort of crowded together, thinking, "Oh, we're safe." And then when Mitchell realizes this, he realizes, "Oh, if I hadn't gone in the car with the ghost, I would have been dead by now." So he says to her, well, I guess you did a kindness. So I guess you didn't. You're not so evil. You're not so evil after all." And the car ghost is like, "No," and basically.
Just melts.
Yeah, basically just melts away into a puddle of goo that disappears. And then Mitchell gets reunited with his family.
I mean, it's no third Uncle Wendell, but it's a decent ending.
Yeah,
so Mitchell gets reunited with his family. Yeah. Marissa rocks up again.
Yeah.
And Mitchell's like, "Stay back from me, you ghost."
Yeah, and then it turns out that Marissa had a twin called Becca, who died in a car crash like a year earlier, and that's who the real ghost was.
And Marissa knew about the ghost because she was with Becca when she was dying and heard Becca's dying intentions.
Yeah, to haunt the car. And then that earlier bit where Mitch calls Marissa and he's like, "I know," that was her.
Marissa thought he was talking
about Becca.
Yes.
But it wasn't. Anyway, and so it basically ends with him sort of trying to convince his parents, and they're sort of beginning to trust him. And he said, "Oh well, eventually they'll believe me at some point." So yeah, and that's the haunted car. Anyway,
the final scare is interesting as well because it's like the car's not working, and the dad's got a guy from the mechanic to come around, and the mechanic's like, "Is this a joke? I figured out why the car's not working, you idiot. There's no battery in it. And it turns out there was never an engine at all.
Yeah, and that's how the parents start to think, oh, maybe he was telling the truth.
Yeah.
So it's the end of it.
So I admit that a lot of my reservations about this is because I was like, you fuckers, Jarrod and Hadley, you've given me a book that I physically cannot relate to in any way.
Yeah.
And also it's basically another ghost thing.
Yeah.
But I do want to quickly address something that you mentioned about the cliffhangers in this.
Yeah.
Because 90% of the cliffhangers in this book are bad and lead nowhere. The first cliffhanger, for example, and this probably set the tone for me for the entire book. It's Todd being like, there's a ghost in my cupboard, do you see it? And then the third sentence is, it's just your laundry bag. So that to me is like Stine's like manufacturing cliffhangers where they don't belong. There's another one later on where it's literally the same thing where it's like there's a ghost and it's like no, it's just Dad.
It's just Dad, yeah.
And then the chapter 9 cliffhanger is Marissa's like driving the car evilly. No, we're gonna crash. And then chapter 10 begins with I woke up.
Show me.
Literally. And that is most of the cliffhangers in this book. And I mentioned that like this book might have had cliffhangers that went nowhere, but at least it pretended that they mattered. Whereas these ones resolved themselves within 2 lines, which put me in a bad state.
Okay, I can understand what you mean by that, but here's my reasoning for it. The reason why those cliffhangers work for me is because they have a decent amount of justification in the narrative because they're related to decent characterization. Yes, we've got, cliched, oh, it was just a dream, and I can understand why that would really frustrate you. Yeah. But it's helpful for me because it helps set up the mystery. It shows Mitch continuing to be confronted with the supernatural and sort of letting go of his lack of belief. And these narrative elements, on a basic level for me, are actually effective.
The ones that relate to the car, sure. But we know that Todd is a scaredy cat. We don't need 3 cliffhangers of him being scared by something that isn't scary to demonstrate that point.
Yeah,
which is where I think that this book falls apart. Because it has a decent story about a haunted car. But then it feels like the book is too long for its own story. You have like I said, like the character of Todd is basically pointless and doesn't really contribute much to the other than just putting the thing in Mitch's head that it might be a ghost, which he could have got in some other way.
I mean,
there's no reason that Mitch can't also be the one who's obsessed with supernatural and also cars. That would have been an extra bit of personality that would have made me go, oh, he's not just a typical 10-year-old car boy. He also has other interests.
Yeah, I can understand that. But for me, at least there is a cohesive narrative here. They're not just a bunch of weird, again, Alice in Wonderland, trippy things that don't actually add up to much. I find the cohesion in this story much more compelling than whatever the fuck we got in this. We've got really kind of nice descriptions, we've got really good telling details, we've got a really strong voice. There's this one bit where he describes their old car before it breaks down. He describes it as being puke green. I really love that image.
My angle on the whole thing is that when I pick this book up and I learn that it's about a ghost car, I can pretty much know immediately what 90% of the book is going to be.
Yeah.
You know pretty much that it's going to lead you down the path of, like, the car's going to get more and more haunted throughout, and it's eventually going to try and kill him. I knew where it was going basically the entire time. There were a couple of wrinkles with Marissa by the end, which I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. But for the most part, I was bored reading it because I could tell what was going to happen. I didn't know what the fuck was going to happen in this.
Yeah.
And that made me more invested as a reader because I was like, I genuinely don't know where this is going, and it's crazy enough that it's hooked me into want to find out.
I think
that's my angle.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think for me, there's just basic building blocks of storytelling that this is just getting right, that this so isn't. The descriptions of Marissa's rotting corpse were really visceral and horrifying.
They were.
There's that one bit where Mitchell describes how he can see like white worms squirming in like her nose or something like that, and it's so icky and disgusting, and it's so well done. And I thought even that whole chapter, which is not a long chapter, the pacing of the whole thing was done really well too. I was genuinely felt quite menaced when it was just building up to this terrifying reveal. So yeah, generally speaking, just better narrative craftsmanship overall than whatever the hell we got in this. This is like it's written by a person who's been working at this game for far too long.
That's interesting
He should have
because to
retired.
me, that's interesting because to me, this felt like a writer who was constrained by his own formula because of all the pointless cliffhangers and because I was picking up on heaps of narrative beats that I've been hearing about on this show for the last couple of years now. Because I was recognizing so many of them in this, and they were hearing this as well, but not to the same extent.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, this is a writer who's tired of writing Goosebumps books, and he let himself off the leash in this one, and I think that's another part of the reason why I appreciated it a bit more.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And I also think just to to end this discussion because we do need to talk about the movie as well.
Yeah.
On a pure promotion level, you pick up this book and you're like, if this book interests you from the cover or the title, and you read it, you're not going to be disappointed because you're like, I wanted a haunted car and I got a haunted car. If you pick up this book and you're like, I can't wait to read about the scariest book ever,
it's not going to prepare you.
It's not going to prepare you, but also the book is by far the most underwhelming aspect of this because again, we learn nothing about it.
Yeah, for sure. The setups are all being paid off. There's no, dancing bears in this story. There's no elements where I'm like, there's no elements that are like, oh, well, where's that thing we devoted 4 pages to describing? Why aren't we going back to that? It's all coming together. This is, again, it is a book. I know I got a bit nutty when I was describing it like that, but this is, for me, a cohesive narrative. This, and I don't know, maybe it kind of does go back to what I've said about Doctor Who. Like, as I've said, often I will appreciate the ambition and the wildness and the imagination.
Well, that's my other thing. Like, when weird, ridiculous plot elements that don't go anywhere, that's the chase, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And that's one of our most celebrated episodes of the Doctor Who.
Yeah, that is a bit true.
It works there, but it doesn't work here.
It doesn't work here. And I'll give you credit, maybe there is a bit of a contradiction. I don't know whether that's because, again, prose is just not my area of expertise. Maybe it's because I have different expectations because I think, oh, it's a book, it's got to have,
Sure.
But for me, there's got to be something, there's got to be something more there. I think, I don't know, maybe because you don't have that visceral visual quality, it can't back up that weak narrative.
Sure.
Because even if you compare this movie to, I don't know, like a B horror movie, like a Lucio Fulci movie, at least that's got visceral shocks and spectacle and shit. But there was just none of that here. Anyway, I think we've agonized over this book and these books enough. To put it simply, I can understand your points here, but I fucking hate that book. That book, at least it's a narrative.
Let's talk about the movie.
Are we cuddling on camera, or is that dead?
You guys are just copying us.
Yeah, no.
Fitz, do you want to... So The Haunting Hour is perhaps the least imaginative title for a Goosebumps movie ever because it could describe any Goosebumps story.
Interjection, it's not Goosebumps. It is just R.L. Stine.
Sure. You say that, but it has so
Haunting Hour,
many...
Goosebumps are all the fucking stories.
It has so many trappings of a Goosebumps story. When it opened with Max and Cassie, the younger child who's afraid of everything and the older sibling who's can't be dealing with any of this shit, I was like, it's just Mitchell and Todd again.
But basically.
And then there's the parents who go off to a work function, again, same thing.
Yeah. Who also, by the way, have barely any characterization.
Yes. Although this is the only wife character of the ones we've watched that actually gets any amount of like depth to them. Like they describe their past.
Still not much, but a little bit.
No. And this one is also about a book,
which is hilarious.
I assume that was unintentional. But this book, it's a book that summons the evil thing.
Yeah.
And we learn what it is. It's a creature with 2 heads. One head feasts on blood. The other head feasts on meat. It's got yellow blood. It carries its babies and eggs on its back.
Yeah.
And that's the best part of the movie because when it gets to that stuff, it's genuinely quite interesting.
The second half is a lot stronger than the first half, and the final act in particular was surprisingly entertaining.
Yeah.
It's not amazing, but
it's a shame that the first half of the movie is a bland G-rated carry.
It is as generic, like a middle school or high school, I don't know, but like school teen drama that you can get.
So it's Emily Osment's Cassie, who's moved to a new town. Same thing. Halfway through the semester, they're about to elect a pumpkin queen,
which is like some sort of prom.
Yeah, and she's that classic like nobody understands me goth girl. That is typical in the mid.
Yeah, the sort of person who gets bullied a bit in high school and then listens to My Chemical Romance on the bus when they go home.
But she loves scaring her brother Max.
Yeah.
And that's what entices Jigsaw.
Yeah. What's his name?
I don't know.
Well,
that's the actor's name, but I don't think the character's ever given a name.
No. Tobin Bell shows up as this evil, scary, bookshop owner.
And she's drawn to this book. It's called The Evil Thing. And it's basically the Necronomicon. The first instruction is do not read aloud. And if you read it aloud, you summon the evil thing.
Yeah. So she goes to this... Actually, no, should we...
She goes to school and she sort of eyes off Himbo Jones, who plays sport and has trouble writing his essays and studying.
Yeah.
And she's about to offer help with his Edgar Allan Poe assignment. But then
she's, smart and likes books and whatever.
Queen Bee Priscilla comes over and is like, I'm the popular girl and you're the popular guy, so obviously we should be together.
Yeah.
What? Someone's looking at you?
Yeah. And, she bullies Cassie. She doesn't take kindly to that. She goes home listening to her
awful soundtrack.
Old emo grunge. I don't know what fucking genre that would be. Terrible soundtrack.
But this inspires her, and she goes to the Pumpkin Festival prom thing with a plan.
Yeah.
It's such a weird prom tradition as well. Like someone gets elected pumpkin queen, and they lower a massive pumpkin piñata for the pumpkin queen to break open.
Which is supposedly filled with candy. I'll give it credit. That's not super creative, but it could have been less creative.
Yeah.
It's dumb and doesn't make any fucking sense.
They could have just done Carrie, but they didn't. They did something a little different.
No.
But Cassie's filled the thing with cockroaches, and Cassie is thoroughly humiliated when she is covered in live cockroaches and then falls directly off... Priscilla is covered in live cockroaches, then trips and falls off of a raised stage onto a table with a cake on it, which would have fucking hurt.
Yeah.
But instead she is laughed at.
She's just laughed at because it's dumb. It's high school in the late 2000s. I guess that's just what happened.
Yeah.
Doesn't Cassie basically just go home?
She just goes home. Priscilla's like, I gotta get her back, and steals the evil thing book, thinking it's a diary.
Yeah. The next day, she gets the book out of her bag and starts reading through it.
Yeah, that's when she learns about the evil thing.
Yeah.
But that night, Cassie's doing her homework, and Max is being an annoying little shit, and I can't tell if it was accident. I think it was on purpose, but you didn't realize the extent of which would happen. Turns off the power, Cassie loses her night's work, and she goes, okay, well fuck you, I'm gonna read you this book and give you fucking nightmares forever. So she reads it and unleashes the evil thing.
Yeah.
At the same time, Priscilla is doing her own prank, pretending there's an evil thing, and spooks Cassie. It's not as good as the prank that was pulled on her, but it's sufficiently mean enough where Himbo is like, that was mean, I'm gonna take this and run.
Yeah.
But by this point, the evil thing has captured both Max and Priscilla. Yeah. And it's demagogued into them, wrapped them up in its webbing, and it's gonna be their food for the babies. Yeah, essentially. Basically. Max and Cassie, Himbo and Cassie, but I don't even know Himbo's name, Sean.
Yeah.
Sean and Cassie team up, they go back to the book owner, and he gives them a riddle, and then the store disappears. Yeah. They figure out that they need to get the heads fighting each other, and they plan to do this by spilling blood over one head, blood from the roast.
There's a roast that's in the kitchen that I don't think ever gets roasted.
It doesn't, but
it's just a bloody piece of meat.
Its purpose is
it's set up. It works in the narrative. So they get this blood from this roast. They squeeze the roast and get all the blood into a pitcher. Yeah. And take it with them to pour on one of the heads. So they're there. They're like in this cavern.
They're in the pipes.
Webs. Yeah, in the pipes. With all the webbing and people are trapped and whatever. And by the way, the bits where the people get trapped in the webbing and the slime and whatnot, they were pretty chilling.
Yeah.
What is it, Jarrod?
Cum's funny.
They get trapped in the cum.
Dude, use a tissue.
Just live
He's
in
10 years old!
I wasn't talking about him.
Cassie and Sean arrive. It doesn't quite go to plan, and Max has to be the one to step up and be brave.
Yeah, and that's when
He gets
Cassie encourages
he gets
him.
encouragement from his sister, and then they defeat the evil thing. They all go home a bit wiser, except for Priscilla, who learns fucking nothing,
Oh yeah,
which is fine.
but she's Queen Bee. Who gives a fuck?
They burn the evil thing book because it's not established that you can't just destroy the book, unlike in Scariest book ever.
Yeah.
And the movie ends with the parents discovering the burnt remnants of the book in the
Which
fire.
wasn't really burnt.
It wasn't burned
actually.
that much, but then they, like idiots,
They read from the book, and then there's a door that creeps open, and the monster presumably comes back.
and then
again.
Emily Osment sings a song, and that's the movie.
Yeah.
Here's, I think, the most telling thing about the entire movie. The first half, we were more interested in the background elements than anything happening in the plot or the foreground.
SpongeBob!
Shout out to SpongeBob.
Shout out SpongeBob!
Shout out to small soldiers.
Salute the troops, gang.
I would actually unironically have that night.
Shout out to the Toy Story 3
Well,
monkey.
that was a Pokemon.
That's a Pokemon.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to Japan.
In the second half, like, the monster itself was interesting enough from both a design standpoint and a production standpoint that it did kind of hook us in for a bit. Granted, I say that, but for the most part, we were just talking about Carmen stuff that isn't going to get on camera.
Yeah.
But
Now you're editing it in because you just referenced
a bit of it.
You know what that like stuff reminds me of, like that goop. You know when you're in like E6 or whatever. No, I wasn't gonna say come you fucking more.
I said come.
Wow, like is that all you think about? Just
Why is
no?
it blue?
I was just thinking like you know
I
when you
fucking
get
like
like
editing any of
E6 and,
this.
like the squishy
I'm
stuff that like
editing
makes
this?
your
Yeah,
mouth
I'm
sound.
not making
Yes,
2 Goosebumps
yeah.
videos in 1 month. The poor man didn't realize what he had ahead of himself.
I just assume that because you have the Goosebump, the viewer title intro thing, and also have access to the YouTube page, it'll just be easier.
You just sent me the video online. I'm not editing 2
Fair enough.
Goosebumps
I mean, that's fair
videos.
enough.
That's way too much.
So, okay, so now that I know that I'm editing this, let's not all talk at fucking once, okay? I was at least trying to pay attention. I can't speak for everyone else on the couch. When I was like able to hear everything that was going on, it was like a decently enthralling monster story.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, I'm a fan of horror movies, have been for years and years by this point. So it certainly wasn't even terribly good, but it was slightly better than my expectations were for it.
And like for 2007,
some of it was decent. The monster looked really good.
we kept waiting for it to look shit.
Yeah. But then we saw it, it's like, wow, there's a lot of effort. The bit where the head split in half, fucking great. But even more subtle things, like the way the monster was directed, like, it's done with practical effects, which one I just love. That's great that they're doing that. But they knew it was done with practical effects. So apart from the fact that they're giving it, you know, the alien treatment, which is to say they're only showing small parts of it until, like, near the end.
Yeah.
Even when they show a lot of it, there's a lot of clever... well, fairly clever, like, editing and direction, so that you just get sort of bits and pieces of it, so you get sort of more of an impression, and it sort of amps up the terror. So that's all really quite good. The characters, they're all pretty thin. They're not particularly interesting. The relationship between brother and sister near the end,
It's the
got a
most
bit compelling.
Well, it's the closest thing the film has to like an
arc or anything.
full arc, where it's like it's the sister. That's just the thing I hate as well. It's the sister's journey to accept the brother.
Yeah.
But it's not the brother's journey to improve himself as a person.
Yeah.
It is that a little bit where at the end they harken back to the you can be brave and you're going to feel so good at the end of it. That stuff is fine.
I mean, maybe they just assume because he's younger, he doesn't have to have any character development.
Sure. I was actually impressed by the amount of elements that had payoffs.
Yeah.
Like, not everything, but the stuff that we identified and were like, that's a bit funny.
Yeah.
The shocker pin. Come on.
Oh my god, the shock pen! Let's go!
Yeah! Chekhov's sugar pen!
Masterpiece. I'm so sorry. Masterpiece.
One thing I will say about this movie is, as we discussed, back half definitely better than the first.
Yes.
Best part really is the third act. But it's only good, really, because of the monster, right? And again, not just because it looks good with special effects, but the way it's directed, and even the way it's written into the story, that there is a sense of menace, there is a level of terror. Here's my question. Why do you need the book to get that monster? Like, I know why you need it, but surely was there not another way to just bring a monster in there? Like, and it's not generic, but it's not really connected with the book in any way.
Yeah, but Evil Dead.
Yeah. Or even the thing, like, there's a thing they keep saying, it's like, oh, it's fine as long as you don't think about it. Could they not have integrated that into the plot a bit more? Could there not have been a bit of, oh, yeah, I'm not believing in it, but, it's like, don't think about elephants, sort of a thing. You know what? It almost reminds me of The Mind Robber. I apologize to the viewers to bring you back to our Doctor Who podcast, but it kind of does.
A little bit.
Yeah, but like, if they could have worked in something like that, where it's like, I don't believe in it, but and then there's a conflict.
It's just the book taunting the reader.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
It's because the instant you tell someone not to think about something,
They're
it's all they can think about.
Yeah, again, it's don't think about elephants.
Yeah.
So the monster basically inceptions itself into existence, and by the way, I say this as a person who's never seen that fucking movie. But those are the most interesting parts of the movie. So if only they could have, worked in a bit more cohesively, I guess, instead of wasting time with all this dumb generic teen drama.
I don't think I would have minded it if they had made the characters a bit more like taking them, like, allowed them to stray out of the tropes, essentially, because they did all just sort of like fit into their generic archetypes and didn't really do much outside of it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like, Cassie is edgy, loner, little brother is annoying little brother, parents are dumb parents, basically.
Yeah, I think I would have appreciated the first half a bit more if, let's say, for example, Himbo Jones also had like a secret intelligence side that he was like, well, people expect me to be the jock, so that's who I am.
But isn't
or
that?
if Priscilla had a different element to her cattiness as opposed to just being catty for no reason.
They're essentially elements to get the plot to where it needs to go.
Exactly, yeah. But it was fine.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It wasn't nowhere near as much of a headache as it could have been, so whatever.
So of the 3 Goosebumps properties that we watched, obviously we're not going to put them on the whiteboard or in the bucket of death, the bin of doom or whatever it's called.
Just the bin.
The bin, it's just the bin. It's just the bin. Nevertheless, I think we should rank all 3.
If I get another D, my dad's not going to let me play ball.
Play
ball?
Any
Any of
balls.
the balls.
You won't let me touch my balls.
If he's playing a different sport in every scene, I'm gonna give this movie a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Too bad you didn't say in it.
Yeah.
We are not giving out of 10 scores for this.
Sorry.
I really need you to remain professional while we're filming, okay?
Why are you such a fucking bully, Hadley?
Cries.
I agree that like most of my enjoyment of this is kind of like, it's not ironic, but I liked it because it was crazy and incoherent and nuts and didn't really stray to it. It didn't feel like it needed to stick to narrative convention.
Sure.
Granted, that probably makes it a worse book, but that's why.
I can understand that.
So like, if I'm being subjective, I'm putting this at number 1 and that at number 3. I think that you will never ever sign off on that. So what I'm going to suggest is this at number 3, the movie at this at number 2, and the movie at number 1.
No, I enjoyed, no.
So what would you say?
Can I
What would you
have
do?
that,
What would
please?
you do?
So, wanted cars like up here.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
Fucking movie is like pretty much down here.
So the poster's gonna go there.
And can you possibly loosen the head of that tripod for a second, Jarrod?
No.
Right, well, fair enough. And then Scariest book ever is like way down there. Scariest book ever, more like worst book ever. There, I fucking said it.
I
Just
don't...
sing your mama's monologue.
Look, I'm compromising on putting that at number 3.
Yeah.
I don't want this at 1.
All right, we
I
have to
don't
come.
want
Okay, we have
one.
to come to a consensus about this.
We
Fuck,
do,
I forgot
yeah.
about that.
This ain't 2 Who's.
This isn't
guys.
2 Who's where we're allowed to have different opinions.
Damn it! God damn it!
This is
okay.
this is the socialist
All
show.
right.
I think that like I
Okay.
look. The movie doesn't
Okay,
have
yeah.
cliffhangers that made me want to tear my hair out. Cassie is bland, but Mitchell makes me weep for humanity. So I want to put the movie ahead of it. And also,
Yeah, okay.
also, like, granted, the story about Marissa and Becca is unique and interesting, but it's a 10% of what this is. For the most
Yeah.
part, it's a story where there's a car coming to life, and I know what that means.
Yeah.
The movie surprised me. The movie got me genuinely spooked. The monster
Yeah.
design in the movie is way more interesting than the car.
I can understand that. Yeah, the monster itself, like that alone, it's definitely more unique than a haunted car.
Yeah.
But it's not as unique as what's in. Yes, okay, I can understand that.
So
All right.
I would say,
Yeah.
there's where we're going to put the car.
Sure.
We can put the movie here,
And then we
and
can.
I'm going to. That's the lowest I'll put this book.
Sure. Yeah. No. I think that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did it.
Yeah.
You can say that if you want. Well, this has emotionally and physically worn out my co-host to a degree that I've never seen before. We won't be back again. If they suggest that we do this next year, at least one of us will object. I'm going to try and weasel my way back into this because I found this genuinely fun. But that might have just been because I liked riling him up a bit. If you want to see more of us, we're over on Two Who's Review, and you can find us on YouTube or Spotify. We review a different episode of Doctor Who each week. We're coming up on the new season of the show with Shruti Gatwa, and that's going to be really exciting. We're both really keen for that.
I'm genuinely excited for that.
He's alive. So check us out there. Jarrod and Hadley will be back next time.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. And if you want to know what they've been doing with their time, you can jump over to our channel where they have done an episode of our show where they've reviewed the animated serial Scream of the Shulker.
Mm-hmm. Which should be interesting.
Yeah, they haven't recorded it yet. I don't think they've even seen it yet. They've both shook their head no.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure they're really going to dig that Flash animation from 2003.
yeah. See you next time, and until then, I'm Alex,
I'm ridiculously done.
and viewer beware, this nearly killed him.